With chapter 153 finally giving us the conclusion of Avernus and the beginning of the Ignia arc, a bunch of expectations are upon it. As we all know, Avernus was not the greatest dragon god, was not the greatest arc, had a lot of lows and a lot of things that, let's just say, are fairly disappointing and I am still kind of salty over. However, the ending of that chapter that built us up to the beginning of the Ignia arc has had me and other fans in high hopes and high expectations. Ignia has been essentially built up as the final villain of 100 Years Quest since the first arc of the story when he first got his introduction. And so it's pretty fair to say that a lot of weight and expectations are placed onto this arc in Ignia as a villain. And I'm going to get into why I think this arc could be great and what we could potentially see in this arc in this video. Before we speculate on Ignia and his arc, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really does help, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. I'm hyped for this upcoming arc, and Fairy Tail High Fridays are going to keep getting better, as I do think I'm going to cover the chapters as they're coming out. Now with that out of the way, let's get right into the video. So really quick, just want to say I'm recording this shortly after chapter 153 of 100 Years Quest, and I haven't decided whether or not this will end up be coming out before 154 or after 154, as I don't think one chapter is going to fully change the course of my video, but we'll just have to wait and see. So Ignia. This character has been built up through the entirety of 100 Years Quest. In the Mercphobia arc, when Mercphobia was going berserk, Ignia shows up and casts the place into a massive fire, meeting Natsu and telling him that he is his older brother. He is Ignio's biological son, and they are by extension adoptive brother, giving him a personal connection to Natsu and Natsu to Ignia. And in this instance, Natsu was essentially forced to eat Ignia's flame to get enough power to defeat Mercphobia. And what was interesting is that Ignia's flames were so strong and so powerful that it was driving Natsu in a rage, burning everything in sight, even after he beats Mercphobia, to the point where his flames and even appearance almost look more demonic than even dragon-like when he was in Dragon Force. And after that, as we move forward, Ignia has gained a very strong interest in Natsu's growth and overall power, as obviously Natsu was the one that took out Acnologia at the end of Fairy Tail, obviously with some help, but that is still not to take away from the accomplishment of taking down someone that Ignia did not have the chance to properly fight or take down himself. And so he views Natsu going on this quest to fight the other dragon gods as a chance for Natsu to get stronger and prove himself worthy of being an actual opponent that Ignia can get excited for. And originally, that was it. Ignia was just another character that we were going to end up facing in this 100 Years Quest. Another powerful dragon that Natsu will have to come down and face. However, as we kept meeting more of the dragon gods and eventually got to the Doggermog arc, more was placed on Ignia's shoulders. He showed up out of nowhere, basically crashed the party and fought Selene, broke into a labyrinth and stole Elefsir's heart so that he can gain the magical knowledge that was within it for a particular plan that he had in mind. Meaning that Ignia was not just interested in Natsu growing stronger for an eventual fight. He had his own plans moving forward, and Natsu showing up with his guild actually helped set his plan into motion, as he also wanted to take out the other dragon gods. With the only dragon god he essentially did not want to fight immediately was Selene, as they were seemingly evenly matched to an extent, as most of the dragon gods are. But Ignia managed to get one over on Selene with more of a sneak attack through the chest. And with the re-emergence of Doggermog, the two of them have an understanding, and Doggermog knows what Ignia's planning and says that it is something he cannot wait to look forward to, as it's something that they've been talking about for a while. So we already have implementation of suspense. Ignia has this grand master plan that we have no clue what it is. Some say it's revival of the dragons, some say he wants to revive Acnologia to fight him himself. Perhaps he even wants to just get rid of all the humans. We don't know. And thus, outside of having a big obstacle for Natsu to eventually overcome and overtake, who is the biological child of his adoptive father, and his older brother to an extent, and this is essentially a familial battle, but alongside that, Ignia has this mysterious plan that he has been planning for a long time and is finally setting it into motion as the dragon gods are beginning to be sealed away. And now, with the Signario sisters revealed to be part of Ignia's whole fire and flame order, and Ignia having this giant Lord of the Rings-esque Sauron castle that he seemingly rules over. And now with 4 of the dragon gods either dead or out of commission, now is the perfect time for Ignia to put his plan into motion. But first I think he wants to test out Natsu. Now what this arc could entail is just the group storming the castle, maybe doing what they've done with the other dragon gods and gaining information on Ignia from the surrounding area. But based off of the buildup of his little Order of Fire and Flame, that could not be the case, and they'll just have to storm the enemy stronghold. Now I do think Ignia will probably make something more of like a game out of it, maybe a tournament, maybe something for entertainment, pit Fairy Tail against his own minions before having Natsu fight him at last so he can truly face off against Natsu at his strongest. And this most likely is not Ignia's full-on plan, more like a side mission that he went and wanted to do as Natsu entered his life unexpectedly and now wants to see how strong his little brother actually is. And perhaps this could even help into making his plan accelerate even faster. Before I talk about the potential fight between Natsu and Ignia, let's talk about his little order of fire god disciples, essentially. Now people have speculated since the Signario sisters used fire to escape, perhaps they are actually fire wizards. Or, what would be even more interesting, as based off of the whole lore of Geltina and the Diablos Guild, this might actually indicate that Ignia has a whole castle filled with fire dragons that he had essentially take on human form to make things easier. Or perhaps fire dragon slayers that he himself taught, which would be a very interesting way to go about things because we had a dragon slayer guild, which is Diablos, who were already pretty formidable opponents. And we also had other dragons with the dragon gods, and with the existence of Diablos, other dragons still exist within Geltina. So it would make sense that fire dragons would flock to Ignia, or perhaps humans would view Ignia as a god, obviously due to his main course of power over the last couple of centuries, and maybe Ignia saw fit to essentially make his own little army of dragon slayers, first generation dragon slayers, teach them transformation magic as they all eventually become dragons themselves, and they have been with Ignia for years. And that would be an insane way to make this seemingly penultimate arc. It's not confirmed yet whether or not 100 Years Quest is going to be finishing soon. Apparently Mashma said that we're halfway done, so obviously what's going on with Ignia is just probably going to be the midway point and start of what will eventually be the endgame of 100 Years Quest, the true endgame. But it would be incredibly fun to see the Fairy Tail Guild fight off against basically Ignia's elite group of fire dragons or even fire dragon slayers that he himself essentially taught and created. And that would test out the Fairy Tail Guild's strength and perhaps, I hope, gives everybody a good big fight. Especially Gray. It would be a crying shame because Gray has not had a big fight in this sequel series at all. I made a whole video on that on how Gray has basically become irrelevant in the sequel series. He desperately needs it. But with the main Fairy Tail Guild fighting off against other dragons or Ignia's disciples at varying degrees of strength, and I do think it would be cool if they were dragons, having Wendy enchant everyone's magic power with Dragon Slayer properties so they can fight these other dragons that aren't as strong as the dragon gods, and showcase that they are at the level to fight dragons if they have a Dragon Slayer enchantment, showcasing just how strong the humans of the day have gotten, primarily Fairy Tail, as it's Fairy Tail, they're incredibly powerful, and ends up impressing Ignia to an extent, thus making the fight between Ignia and Natsu all the more climactic, as it's basically a battle between brothers, and Natsu trying to take down Ignia for potentially doing some big plan that he has in store. And this would be an insane fight, as they're both fire dragons, meaning that their attacks won't do too much damage and will only go in terms of destructive power. And Natsu would have to eat Ignia's flames and Ignia Natsu's flames, and it'll be a perpetual motion of fire and fire. This has not really happened in Fairy Tail between dragon slayers at all of the same element, as this essentially never happened before. The most we got was Zonkro in the Tenero Island arc as a fire god slayer, and that's not exactly the same thing because it was hard for Natsu to eat Zonkro's flames at first. But now, this is the first of its kind. A dragon slayer and a dragon of the exact same element duking it out all in this instance. And if you've seen one of my first Fairy Tail Friday videos where I talk about Natsu END showing up, I stated that Natsu END will appear in this fight with Ignia. It would be perfect Legitimately, it would be perfect for Natsu to not only use his dragon powers, but to bring out his demon side once and for all. And finally, Mashima can give us the true END transformation that we've all been waiting for, because it has been teased in Fairy Tail and we have never truly gotten it. And with this big climactic fight, either Ignia will show his hand and the fight will end before there is an actual clear victor, or perhaps something else will happen, causing either Natsu and Ignia to team up, or perhaps Ignia gets defeated and the true big bads of 100 Years Quest that weren't even the Dragon Gods will appear. Now that would be an interesting twist as well, or perhaps Ignia wanted to revive what would be essentially the true Dragon Gods. That's something that was in one of my comments and I cannot find it, that perhaps Ignia wanted to revive or bring forth the true, actual, literal Dragon Gods for he himself to fight and prove his strength towards. And that would be an interesting thing, because the Dragon Gods we've been facing are just incredibly powerful dragons that were just given the title of God because of how powerful they are. And so it would be very interesting and add more to the lore of Fairy Tail as well, if there were legitimate, literal Dragon Gods that existed in ancient times that Ignia himself wants to bring forth into this world, just for the sake of testing out his strength, or perhaps even being able to gain the power of, for whatever other reasons. And that would be interesting as well. Either way, the Ignia arc has a lot on its shoulders. Ignia has been an impactful and pretty intimidating and badass villain, even though we only really got to see him fight for like one big fight, but he just has that aura of a big bad that knows how he's tough shit and can back it up. And he's got something brewing in the background that we don't really know full on what it'll be. And that excites me. It excites everybody reading this story, which is why we have such high expectations and hopes, because this has been being built up to since this sequel series essentially started. And just like all the fans reading this manga, I am incredibly excited for this upcoming arc. But what do you guys think? Are you excited for this Ignia arc? What do you think is going to happen? Do you think anything I said in this video is likely to happen in this upcoming arc? And what do you think the fights will end up being like? Let me know in the comments section down below. And if you haven't already, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. Now with all that said and done, I hope you all have an awesome day.